Hello and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be talking about rotations and the mistakes you're actually making with rotations. Now I know it sounds a bit surprising. Rotations, can you make mistakes in rotations? Yes, you sure can, and I'm going to be highlighting 3 key mistakes I see players make in these ranked games that cost them the game, which are rotational errors. Now, of course, if you're interested in this kind of content, leave a like on the video, sub to the channel, and of course, leave a comment down below about what you think that can help improve your game more. All right, let's just get right into it. And we're going to talk about number 3, which is, I think, one of the key biggest problems I see in rotations, and it's like this idea of push and pull. I'm going to go give a Glaceon on the top side and a Cramorant on the bottom side. And let's just imagine there's like 4 enemy team players on the bottom side. Doesn't matter who, use your creativity. So you have the enemy box, and they're clearly pushing into this bottom tier tower. Now what I'll see is this Glaceon will do one of 2 things. So option 1 is that Glaceon will decide to just sit here and do nothing. Like there's no pressure. Maybe they'll continue to farm. That's like honestly okay, like whatever. You know, we continue to farm. Full roulette. Boom. Done. Maybe farm some of the jungle, maybe come down eventually. Most of the time you're going to lose the pad, and then you might get pushed here. You might defend the push. Right, and then the second option is that they'll react late, so the push happens and they're starting to score, and now Glaceon will come to defend, and of course the pad will get broken and they'll defend the tier 2. Enemy team will come for jungle and get all the top as well. So in this example, you're going to see that more often than not, the blue side ends up at a huge disadvantage just simply because of this rotational error. And you might be thinking, what is actually going wrong? Like, you know, what is Glaceon meant to do? So here's a simple solution for my third, like most valuable tip of what players do wrong, and it's just the push here. Now, the reason you just want to push here is because you see 4 players, they've already committed a large majority of their team to make something happen in the bottom lane. And unless you believe that you're going to make it there before they can make a sizable impact, more often than not, it's best to just give in to the tide. You don't need to push and stop every single play. You can acknowledge that they're making that play, and you can acknowledge that by making your own play, which is by dropping your 40 points in top lane, by actually creating pressure on the other side of the map. Now, of course, if you're there by yourself and the enemy team has a player there too, of course it's going to be even. But in that case, you have a lot more variety of plays, and more often than not, your teammates will be able to back up the bottom. So the main idea of being able to score onto this pad is to create pressure in the game that maybe one of them will decide, oh, I want to stop that score, and then break off the main pack. Teams are a bit stronger together, and so like a main way how unite pads are pushed and lost. And this split pushing attempt of like realizing, hey, I'm not going to recall, I'm not going to lose my ground, I'm going to take all the farm, and I'm going to make the score, is going to get you more often ahead than actually, like, you know, just going and trying to concede and like, oh, I need to help the team. You need to make sure that the team is in a better position than before, and if you're going to defend the pad, which is more likely to be lost than not, you're going to cause your team to actually fall behind in terms of the overall impact in the game. Because you were in the top lane anyway. You were already too late. Like, this is a symptom of making another mistake already, and I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, you've already made the mistake. Like, you weren't able to acknowledge the rotation before it happened, and now you're coming late. So instead of coming at all, why don't we think about actually putting some scores in top lane, getting the farm, and actually like building our lead? That's always something I want players to think about. It's building leads, building advantages in the game that are going to be sustainable and long term. There's no point in, you know, rotating to these things if you're not going to have like this quantifiable edge at the current moment. You're just going to end up ruining your team's experience, all of you falling behind, and then probably forcing some really dodgy fight, and the enemy would have taken advantage, rotated top, and taken all the experience you could have gotten if you had just been a bit more selfish, a bit more aware of the situation. So once again, to summarize point 3, when something happens on the map, look at where you are and look at what you can do. It's like I was always told in chess, checks and counters. What is your counterplay, and is there anything you can do that can cause an immediate threat for an enemy team? Counters and checks. Keep it in your mind. So for number 2, it's going to be a very interesting situation. I'm just going to get rid of some of these actors here. And it's going to be the idea of being late to rotations. So when you're rotating throughout the map, I see a lot of the times players clear very inefficiently. You're going to be seeing players do the ball toys first, and then go like this, and then up here, like in the middle of the game. And like, why are you going from top back into top? More often than not, it's a very bad idea. Because what you're doing is you're crowding this side of the jungle. and this side of the map. It's like, imagine this quadrant. If you went and just recycled this area, the enemy team could have recycled their area, push button, and now you're looking like a little bit of a goose. That you've spent all this time, and instead of actually being able to work towards like leading your team to another side of the map, especially considering the farm is going to be in a weird timer, you're going to reroute top. And in this case, you might actually end up meeting another player holding, and then the player who's got all the levels is going to go down bot lane and make more of an impact. More often than not, you want to be able to use your levels to create a disadvantage on the map, and that's not going to always happen if you're not looking to creatively path and fluidly clear. As you can see, when you saw this pathing begin, they started from the ball toys and then finished up into the buffs. It's going to set the buffs onto a worse timer. It's going to mean the ball toys spawn before, and the ball toys are worth almost no experience. You need to prioritize your experience here, and you need to prioritize rotating through the experience when you can. Like, if you're going to cut through the middle of the map, you want to go and look to get some of the beasts, maybe a ball toy if you have the time. Like, you don't want to just run through the middle of the map, because that's that time that you need, like, you know, you like need to be there. You've already made the mistake. I hope you guys want to realize this. Rotate with the farm spawns. Create actions with the farm spawns. There's always something to do in the map, and if there isn't anything to do, think about what will happen next. Always be thinking about what's happening next. It's a bit different to the next point, but it's about this is alleviating that mistake we mentioned before about players not being the right places. You need to know where the action is going to be. Where is the farm? You know, what does the enemy team want? And when you understand that, you go and position yourself to be at the farm when it spawns, and be away from the farm when there's going to be something on the map that's going to happen. This is going to help you catch these pushes, these pesky 50 points, and it's also going to help you create a bigger advantage in the map. And this is, of course, it happens to a lot of players. I've given it many times, like a 50 score on top, because I'm not paying attention to my farm. I'm not paying attention to the routing I should take, and I'm not paying attention to actually like what the enemy team wants to do. You need to be acutely aware of what their actual end goal is, what is going to be the best way for them to get back in the game. And if you don't think they can fight you, maybe they're starting to understand that as well, and then maybe they're going to start to back off. And that's when you should be looking to, as I said, make these rotations with aggression, with taking the farm, and then looking for your next step after the farm. Think about what the next camp is going to be. Can you invade? Can you put pressure there? Can you relax on that and put pressure in the bot lane or the top lane or whatever you want to do? You need to be thinking at the next step before it happens, so you're there on time. If you're the person who's late, you're going to lose more often than not. Unite is a game about speed in this sense. You want to be fast. And I think like something I credit a lot of Latin American players and teams for is they're very fast, and they actually have a lot of gumption when they actually make these ideas, because they go and they go. Like, there's no more in between. They're just like, we're going to go and we go. And I think that's something that a lot of players can learn. So moving into the best tip I have for you, and this is going to be quite astonishing. And it's a little bit more expanded from the push and pull idea, but it's a lot about actually getting more value out of your rotations, like in a different way than what we just talked about. When I say getting more value out of your rotations, it's more than just knowing where the fight's going to be and where the next kind of map presence is going to happen, but it's about actually timing what the enemy team's rotations are going to be and matching them in a way that balances you in the favor of that battle. So if you know the jungler is going to go and clear, you know, whatever kind of goofy clear they do and run to a lane, sometimes you don't need to meet them because they're going to be the highest level in the game. Sometimes you can go and play opposite to them and you can get ahead of the game because you have no one to contest your high level. Now, of course, you do have an opportunity that they can get even further ahead because they already have the levels and they're going to be uncontested. But more often than not, these players are going to have a knee-jerk reaction to the mismatch and misbalance that you put into another lane. You're forgetting that experience given from kills is an infinite resource, and it's one of the best resources in the game if you can constantly create these opportunities to get them. You should be thinking about setting up ganks, setting up traps, setting up situations where your team is going to be an advantage from the plays you make, from the positions you're in. It's about rotating with purpose. Now, I guess this mistake that we're actually going to talk about in this exact situation is the rotations with clueless thinking. And I guess I have a highlight here. I have a Crustle and a Mime. I played this game a few days ago, and I basically throughout the whole game I'm watching Crustle run to the top side, just die on spawn, recall, and then go to the other lane, die on spawn. And like what happens in this situation is that this player is unable to make any type of suitable impact in the game. because they're constantly dead. They're constantly fighting about their team. And if you go in with them, because they're so under level, never farming, and when they are, they're farming and immediately feeding back the experience, it's just giving the enemy team a bigger and bigger snowball lead. Pokemon Unite is outplaying your team. You need to group up for players to actually do things. And you should be thinking about that group up when you're making rotations. You need to think, I'm strong now. It's a good time to group up and make something happen with your team. There's no point of just solo playing the entire game of farming jungle, going to the Rayquaza, clicking X attack, and nuking Rayquaza because of a lucky region. A lot of the time, this isn't going to work in a top level game, and this is a bad habit to instill in yourself. And I know a lot of players who do this. I think this is a very selfish way to play. Of course, it works half the time because the enemy team are playing like this, what I'm talking about. They're just not being present with the objectives. But I think this is a symptom of the same idea. It's like a problem of a different tier, right? Like, so this is the beginning version, like the most beginner's version of like being bad in that sense is going to these lanes and just dying on spawn. And then the more advanced version is not interacting at all, going to Rayquaza and then just trying to full flip it. More often than not, you're going to end yourself at a full disadvantage. Like, you don't need to make this play. You can make clever and incredible map movements prior to this that can create good openings in the game. You always have the option and ability to make macro play and also be clever with your rotations. So think about the value you bring to the team. The characters you're playing matter on rotations as well. If you're going to play support and you're like rotating and trying to make solo lane plays, leave that for the core players. Like, leave that for your attacker, for your central play area, and leave that for your top laner. Instead, as a support, combine with their efforts and look to set up like team plays with your tanks, with your top laners, with your attackers, because you're not going to create enough pressure by yourself. Like, you're either going to hold the lane solo and just be whittling away as an Eldegoss, or you could be a battle goss going and charging to battle your team, healing them and being proactive in the game and making a big difference. It's always about how you look at it. Understand what your character does and why it's effective. Like, you'll see a large reason why Comfy actually has like a decent gameplay rate is because when you just sit on someone, you're at least going to be there with them for every step of the way. And if you pick the right person, more often than not, you're going to be at the right type of fights. So I hope you guys love these tips. I've been away for a bit. I'm going to be keeping up the content. I know that you guys are going to love it. I have lots planned for the next few weeks. So of course, as always, remember to like the video, sub to the channel, and of course, follow, I guess, the channel and everything is about it. We have a lot coming up. There's a Gyarados giveaway that's going to come soon when that's coming out. So I'm really excited. And lots of videos to come, guys. See you later. Have a good one.